Welcome, everyone, to The Heart of the Artist, presented by Tesoro. I am so excited today to be interviewing Iron Orchid. This is the first time I have ever interviewed someone who wasn't a poet. So, this is really exciting for me. How do you describe yourself? In the video, I described you as a musician and a songstress and a producer. So, tell me,
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of like poet adjacent is really it. I've always really loved stories and the written word all of my life growing up, and music just kind of was the channel that made it the easiest for me to get that out. So I this is my first interview ever. So I we're all babies here. So yeah, I think we, just different forms of creativity that come out in different strands. And as much as we've talked a lot and I've heard a lot of your poetry, there's so many days that now I'm like, maybe I could be a poet. Maybe I could like try that lane at some point.
absolutely. That's the great thing about poetry. It's one of the my favorite things about poetry of all the arts. You don't have to have any equipment other than just, a pen and a piece of paper
Hmm.
or your phone recorder. Just, speak your truth.
Yeah, it's a very classic art form, and it's obviously been around for a very, very long time. So,
So I remember when we talked about so many things, but what we really didn't talk about was the Nashville dream. And I
mm,
wanted to save that for now because it's kind of interesting to me. If you're an actor, you want to go to New York or go to California. If you are a musician, you want to go to Nashville or go to California. So it's like you go somewhere. Like poets don't go anywhere. We just,
you
but
need it everywhere.
even
That's
with
why.
you're a musician, you go to Nashville. So I almost picture it as like sort of, Mecca for singers, songwriters, producers. What's that like? What's that?
Yeah. So for me, when I started my career, I very strictly wanted to be a country music singer. So that was why I came to Nashville. I've lived around various places. I'm very familiar with LA. I grew up going there a ton. So I knew that that was not the scene for me because I wanted to do country music very plainly. And also, I had family on the East Coast, so I was living on the West Coast, and I kind of wanted to get a little bit closer back that way. So it just seemed like the right move. I was 22 when I moved here. I barely just turned 22. And um, honestly, when I look back at it now, I'm so glad that I did that at the age before I knew how to be afraid, because I don't think that I would do that now. But I was just so like, whatever. Like, if I have to start over and get a new apartment in a new town that's 10 miles from where I live, how is that any different than getting an apartment in a town 1,500 miles from where I live? And I just came with like a hope and a prayer that I was gonna just figure it out. And that was I was like, I'm just gonna figure it out. I have no idea what I'm gonna do. And this was back before like independent artistry really became a thing. And I think that's like now seeing how much easier it is for independent artists to hit the market, I really am like, what was I thinking when I came back then? But I was really fortunate when I came to Nashville that I got set up with like the right people early on. I was really lucky to date a guy that had a relative success in the music industry. And so he kind of gave me my foundations of like what I needed to do, if that makes sense. So he was the one that set me up with my PRO, which is a professional recording organization. That's how you get your royalties if people play your music anywhere, and how they track your royalties. And he just set me up with the right people where I started getting set up with other songwriters downtown, and I was writing on Music Row, and I was just kind of like thrown into the mix. And I think my story is different from a lot of people because I was very interested in the music business side, not necessarily because I wanted to work in that side, but I just really wanted to have a clear understanding of how to go from making music to making money making music, right? Which I knew playing live shows was never going to be it. And it just doesn't really, unless you're playing with like a big band and you're playing in big stadiums, it really just doesn't pay a whole lot of money. And I could not afford to pay anybody to play with me. So I just was really lucky to kind of get channeled into like the proper way of doing things early on. And that's why I have such a passion now of helping other artists understand that there's so many avenues that you can do with music. It's not just go play shows in front of people. I mean, being an artist is it's honestly a really small portion of what opportunities that you can have in the music industry. And I think Nashville is kind of a double-edged sword where you can be the best of the best where you're from. You are not going to compare to anybody here in Nashville when you show up. And that's just it. These are the greatest musicians in the world come here. I mean, I've heard people play downtown on a random Thursday afternoon that sound better than the record sometimes of like who originally played. I mean, it is just like overwhelming the amount of talent that is here and just pure authentic rich talent. And what I really cared about Nashville over, and this is just my experience, I can't speak for everybody, but what I felt like in LA, it was more of a game of who you knew and how much money you had, and you
Mhm.
didn't really have to have a whole lot of natural talent to be successful. That is not the story in Nashville, at least in my experience. You have to be talented to make it here. You have to be able to at least write part of your own song or play guitar or something. You can't really stitch it together and fake it till you make it here as much as you can in other places. And I think that's a good and it's a bad thing because like it really weeds out anybody who doesn't have the chops to do it. But it also is like you just will not know the standard of what you have to be until you come here. So that's
Mhm.
just it. Like this, just you don't even know how to start the race until you get here and you see what you're actually up against and what people actually expect of you. Because just being a good singer songwriter isn't it. That's just not enough here. I learned about things like PK packages, like which is press kit packages. If somebody wants you to do something, you need to have this whole sheet put together to send out to them that says where you've played and if you've sold any music, and it's kind of like your resume. And there's just like all these little things that when you're here and you're talking with everybody who's in it, it sounds very familiar. But if you've never been in this environment, these are things that you would never consider or think of. And so I think it's a really cool place because it really does set the bar. If you're going to make it, you have to be able to at least play in this bracket. And if
Mhm.
you can't, then you're just not going to make it up that far. So like as a young musician when I came and really not knowing what I was doing, it's not like there's a roadmap out there. Like nobody says when you come here, do this and then this and then this and then this and then that's how you like everybody is so tight-lipped with a lot of the information that you really just have to be around people that are willing to share it. And I do think that there's a culture in Nashville of people spreading and sharing information. Somebody took me under their wing and just gave me free information and I've done the same, you know. So like the energy is palpable here and the community is palpable here, but you really just have to be able to stick it out. It is a tough town. It is, they call it a 10-year town because it is. It takes 10 years to make anything happen when you're here. But if you can grit it and
So
you
let
can
me
go
tell you the
through.
thing, though. I got to tell you the thing. When we talked, this shocked me. And maybe I'm naive for being surprised at it, but it really shocked me when you said this. I guess I always had this idea of California as being kind of, the sleazy, the couch trip, that kind of thing, right? I never thought that Nashville was that way. You think of country music as being wholesome and, you know, the things that are unsavory as to how someone gets ahead. I
Mm,
expected that to hear about that from California. I was
yeah.
surprised that you were asked to do unethical things in
Oh,
Nashville.
yeah.
And why should I be surprised? But I was.
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, it's a man's world, and power comes with some scary backsides to it. And so I think it's just, I don't think my experience in that would have been different anywhere that I would have been. Just as a young, single 22-year-old girl, it was uncomfortable to go right with older men and to have them ask me questions about my personal life that I didn't feel like had anything to do with writing music. But when you're young and you're naive and you don't know, and they, if people give you a good enough reason, it sounds good enough, right? So you usually will hear things like, oh, well, I'm just trying to get to know you better so we can like vibe, and that kind of stuff, right? So I think that I'm happy that I have had enough sense about me that I've been able to keep a very good distance, I think, of predators from really being able to prey on me. Not to say that I haven't in some way been a prey, I'm sure that I have, but I was always, I mean, I'm a pretty big person. Like I size up physically to most men. So it takes, you got to have some pretty big cojones if you think that you're going to like push me around because most men I'm bigger or if not as big as they are. But I do feel for the women that I knew and I've known here who have been very much pushed into um, uncomfortable situations under the guise of, you know, oh, we're just going to write together. Oh, we're just going to do this. And the other thing too is it's different now. It's totally different now. I want to, let me back up and say it's a totally different experience now because a lot of this has come to light, especially here in Nashville. So there's companies now that exist that didn't exist before that have like mutual writing rooms that you can go to. So
Okay.
if you guys want, you know, that just didn't really exist when I first came here. So it was like, I've written songs in the lobby of hotels. I've also written songs in people's bedrooms. I've written songs like all over the place because you just kind of like went where you went. And so I think, especially country music, is really very male dominated. So it's a hard industry to be in as a woman. And I think that just people that feel like they have an ability to make other people feel like they can do something for them, that just comes with a predatory nature if you're the right person. And so it's everywhere. It's in anywhere that has to do with promising people fame, you're going to find that.
Yeah. So talk to me about the trip from California or wherever it was, coming into Nashville. You're 22, you're by yourself. You're probably in, your first car that you got as a kid and you haven't gotten a real car yet and you
So
pop a
actually,
giant.
no, it was actually set up pretty well. So before I
Okay.
moved to Nashville, I was working on various farms and ranches. So I was working with a lot of horses and cattle. So I had already had a lot of independent jobs. I had a really big truck and I had been carrying horse trailers. So I actually felt like I was in the best position possible. Like I remember talking to myself about it and just being like, if I'm not going to do it now, I'm not going to do it. I have no kids. I'm not married. My car's paid off. I have no debt. I don't have any student loans. Like I was just really in a place that my didn't have a lot of roots set anywhere. And
Mhm.
so I just told myself, like, this is the most free I'll ever be to achieve this. So let's do it. So I drove out here and I actually lived in my truck for like 3 weeks, which is bananas to think about. Like I drive around some of the places I used to just sleep in my truck with untinted windows that anybody driving by could just see me sleeping in there. And I was just not afraid. I just knew as soon as I pulled in that this was where I was meant to be. It was an overwhelming feeling of familiarity that I've only ever felt one other time, and that was when I met my husband. And it was so familiar to me. It was like I was revisiting a life I'd been in. And so I just knew that I was really talented, and I knew that could work really really hard. And if somebody told me what to do, that I could do it, and that I really would just follow anybody's advice and not question a whole lot. So I just, I don't know. I just knew I was probably right when I turned 22. And I just had that thought of like, if I don't do this now, I will never. And I need to just do it. And I am lucky that I come from a long line of really strong women that are like, I don't need a man and I can just do anything. So I just packed my truck up and I just moved out here and I just figured it out. I actually ended up working out at the Hermitage, which is Andrew Jackson's plantation here. So I trained the carriage horses down there and did carriage tours. And that was kind of like my in between money while I was playing shows at night for free and making no money, that I could go work there during the day. And it just, all the pieces just kind of fell into place where they should have at the time that they should have. I wish that I would have spent more time playing out and getting to know more artists like in Nashville. If I had any regret about it, I wish I would have built more of a community around wanting to be with other artists. But I also think that that's hard here because a lot of people are very skeptical of other artists and they don't really want to share the stage. So if you go talk to somebody, they're just assuming that you're trying to like fly on their coattails, which is totally reasonable because everybody here knows everybody. I mean, like it's a weird place to be because you can literally go out to the crappiest bar you've ever seen, and it's 100% possible that like Garth Brooks' tour manager could just be in there. I mean, like it's like gambling. It's literally like gambling in the city. Every single place you go, you have the opportunity of meeting somebody who could do something for your career. I had a roommate once that was playing downtown like his fourth or fifth show he was playing. He just moved here, and some guy who owned an oil company loved him and gave him like $30,000 to fund his career and like start, you know. So I mean, like you just, I think it is not for the faint of heart. You really have to be able to like do that grind of inconsistency, and that's the hardest part. Is like it's feast or famine. You either have a lot of what's going on, or you're really struggling to find anything, and that goes up and down all year long depending on where you are. So to get back to your original question, I think Nashville is somewhere that if you're serious about being a musician, you definitely have to come here. But I think you need to come here and understand the game you're playing, and then you need to leave and go build your fan base, but have a prepared station of what you're going to do when you have enough fan base to move on to the next stage. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You're
So
just, I just don't think you can build a fan base in Nashville because there's not really a whole lot of places to play original music, to tell you the truth. People just want to
right.
hear you sing their favorite song while they get hammered downtown. And that's great. And being a human karaoke jukebox is really good practice. I've never been a better musician than I have been here. The things that I've learned, the people that I've been around, like I couldn't even hardly play guitar before I moved here. Now I play the guitar. I can play percussion. I play the piano. I'm learning the flute right now. Like just the foundations of how to understand and live and breathe music is nowhere. You can't find that anywhere else here. And they have this thing called the Nashville number system, which if anybody ever like is interested in learning music or playing, I would highly recommend that you learn that. And what it essentially is it assigns a number to chords so you can change keys really quickly. So like G would be one, C would be two, D would be three, whatever. And then if you needed to change from playing in C to playing in A, you're playing the same, you're just going by numbers instead of going by chords, if that makes sense. So you can really quickly switch out of, and that for me was like unbelievable when I learned how to do that. And I could switch from playing piano to playing guitar and jumping from playing in G here to playing in C here. And that just opened up a whole nother layer of understanding music and how to write music and hear it and see it as a whole painting in a different way and like on a methodical level. And so I was really surprised more of anything when I moved here to Nashville at how much luck isn't really a part of it. People really talk about like it's you just got to get your lucky streak. I don't believe that at all, actually. I think that this is a place that shows where hard work pays off. And if you are like prepared and you've done the things that you should do, then when you get to the right opportunity, you'll have the right foundation to be able to make your career take off. And so, and it's things like that. It's understanding about how to write a song and the parameters of if you want to write a song that's going to be a hit, you need to get to the chorus in the first 30 seconds and it can't be over 3 minutes and 5 seconds. And I mean, there's like structures of things that it's a well-oiled machine here. And I think it's just hard to find a door to get into it. But when you do, it all actually makes a lot of sense.
So I want to focus on you because we are talking a lot about of interesting music stuff, but I want to focus on you because your journey to me is so fascinating. You came to this place as a 22-year-old. You obviously knew yourself very well. And, I dread to think about the people who don't know themselves very well, who get into that environment. They probably have a tough time, but you knew yourself really well. I can picture you doing these jobs by day, playing by night. In the meantime, you're learning these instruments, you're honing your craft, but you said that, you kind of realized that it's a dead end. What was that process like for you going from this is the time I'm going to come and I'm going to throw my all into this to saying this is a grind and it's not going to take me where I need to go?
Yeah.
How did that
Uh,
come about?
Yeah, so everything we just talked about is so foundational to understand the answer to this question. That as I got into it and I just did not like the person that I was when I was trying to be this artist, the artist and the way that everybody said that you had to be. I just couldn't stand myself, if I'm being honest. It was the me show all the time. And I was getting bored listening to myself talk to other people about myself. And I felt like I just took fake it till you make it a little too far, that I was just faking all of it. And I just had a moment of clarity where I just felt like I was grinding for nothing. And I really didn't have, it's funny, you say like, I mean, I knew myself enough that I knew what I was capable of doing, but to say that I knew myself, I really didn't know myself at all at that time. And that was the breaking point, was when I reached about 25, as most of us do when your brain finishes developing. I just had this like moment of clarity where I did not feel authentic and I did not feel original. And I felt like the reason my career wasn't going anywhere is because I wasn't writing or doing anything that was interesting or authentic really in any way. And so I had met my husband and we had opened another business. And so I just decided to just put it to the side. And I didn't give up, but I just didn't know what my path was going to be. I just kind of accepted that the path that I had chosen for myself, it wasn't the right one. And I needed to just wait until the right path showed up. And so we continued to have a very successful business downtown. And I really didn't think very much about the music, but what I didn't know at the time was that, so I came here to do country music. I have two country songs on my entire album. So I did not end up doing country music. And that was really the key, was that I had just told myself I was going to be a country music singer. And that's all I was interested in doing. I was only listening to country music. I was only singing country music. And I really just put myself into a corner where I didn't have a lot of room to move. And when I met my husband, who's the iron part of the Iron Orchid, the couple of years that I had put my career aside, I didn't know that he was really helping me build a foundation of what my music career was going to be. He really pushed me in directions that I would have never picked for myself, like styles of music to sing and just really thought-provoking questions about stuff. I mean, he's incredibly intuitive and very, very smart and incredibly compassionate and empathetic. And so he made me feel way more confident in myself and my ability than I had ever felt. And I'd really never been with anybody who didn't see my career as a point of contention or like jealousy in any way. I'd never dated anybody that was supportive of my music career. If I'm being honest, they just like practicing was weird. It just wasn't helpful in any way. And my husband is the first person that was like, you should sing this song. And I was like, what? I can't sing Celine Dion. And he's like, yes, you can. You should totally do that. And he just really made me see everything in a different way that made me feel like I had a bigger understanding than I had originally thought that I did. And so when we had decided we were going to move from Nashville, I wanted to get a lot of the songs that I had written. I'd never put out any original music in the whole time that I've been here. I mean, I'd written hundreds of songs, but I'd never really gotten anything recorded, and I never really put anything out. And so I just decided before we left this place that has really good musicians and really good studios, and I would never be able to get anything better than what I would do here. We just wanted to do a couple of songs. So I went back to my catalog and I picked a handful of songs that I just was going to have produced so that I could pitch them to be sold to somebody. And as I was going through and making them, it was just like one after another. We were like, man, that's a smash. That's a hit. I really like that one. And after like 7 or 8 songs in a row that we both felt like were really good songs, we were like, we have to just do an album now. Like, why would I make all this music and give it to somebody else to go put their name and their face on it, which is fine. Like, that's totally an option. If anybody wants to buy my music, you're welcome to re-record it and buy it from me. We can talk about that. But, there's another opportunity in music that I learned about being here in Nashville called sync licensing. And that for me was really like the pivoting point of realizing that I don't need to be an artist to make music. And through my course of my career here, and I've had I shouldn't say a lot, I've had a couple of sit downs with some pretty prominent people and labels and stuff. And I just never felt like it was about the music. I felt a lot of it was about me or my story or, like a personality kind of thing. And I didn't want that. I wanted it to be focused on my music and my music only. And so this was where my husband and I came up with this concept of being this band, Iron Orchid, and that we were going to make this album. And so the idea is that we made an A-side album and then we made a B-side album as well. So I just have any kind of like physical copies of stuff. I have CDs and I have vinyls, and I know it's shameless, but here's my plug. And we're getting the B-side done on a CD here sometime soon. But so the whole idea was that we did these really overproduced songs, which is what is radio hits in the standard of like it, all that stuff. And then I wanted to also give the vision that most people don't get to see in this process, which is the originality of how these songs are made. So a really good example is the first track on both songs, Over the Edge. A1 Over the Edge is like an electronic house number. We were very inspired by The Fifth Element, if you remember that movie, and like all these lasery kind of sounds. But the B-side version is just me on a piano, and it's very simple, and it's just more of like a romantic and a ballad kind of style. And that's the duality between those two, is that the B-side is all original. They're all live performances. So when we did all the A-side stuff, you usually will go through and do like your verse 20 times over, and then you'll sing your chorus 20 times over, and then your second verse, and you kind of piece it out. And with the B-side, we really wanted to create the authenticity of it. So we just did one take all the way through of every song, and then we would just do another whole take and a whole take and a whole take. And so it really was like a performance, and I wanted to capture the feeling of listening to somebody live, because it's such a heavy and emotional album that you kind of need that like energy. You have to feel that authentic energy in it, otherwise it just feels too heavy. Versus the A side was so fun to be able to explore different kinds of music and different kinds of instruments and different styles that we've never done. So it really felt like we got a master class of everything that I had done coming up to that point. And then this just kind of put it in a whole picture in a way that I can actually help other people with what I had learned. And my experiences amounted to something that was tangible, that we could move on and continue that work after we've left Nashville.
I really love the fact that you had to, as you said, put it down and walk away from it
Mm-hmm.
to get a perspective on it. And then when you came back to it, you had a completely different approach
Mm-hmm.
that has borne the fruit for you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, no, I mean it really is. And again, around that time is when I just learned to let go of deciding like my life is going to be this way, and if I do this, it's going to happen, because life just doesn't happen that way. And in, even in relation to my songwriting, as I've just let go, and now when I sit down to write a song, I don't actually know what it's going to sound like. I don't really have an idea. I just sit down when I feel inspired, and I let it unfold to be the way that it should be, instead of forcing it to conform to be this thing that I think. And when I let go of that, and I really learned to embrace the unknown as something that's exciting instead of something that's scary, I have never had better work. And also, I just didn't have any life to live. I'd lived yet, I mean, I hadn't lived through anything at 22 really that was impressionable enough that I could make music from. I mean, I was writing about experiences that I thought I was going to have, or experiences that I thought other people should have, but I really wasn't writing from anything that was like mine. And when I wrote the pieces for my album here, I didn't write them thinking I was going to have an album. I just had hit a point where I hadn't written music in so long. It was overflowing out of me. And I sat down and I just started writing. I had learned to play the piano in that time. And so that was kind of when I went through most of the songs on Pages, are songs that were newer for me to have written, and in a different way than how I was writing when I originally had moved here. And it was because I was writing because I felt it. I wasn't just writing to write a hit song. It was something that was traumatizing, or something that was so endearing to me that I couldn't contain it in my body any longer. And I needed to put it out somewhere, and I needed to put it in a structured way that was therapizing for me. And that was the only thought that I had behind it. And when I really let go of that neediness of, I want to write a hit song and this is what you should do, is when I felt like my best work came out, of just trusting myself and trusting the process, and just not dictating this is how it has to be, but just getting in the water and waiting and just learning how to swim. And that was like a life-changing experience. And I have never been more proud of anything that I have done than my album. And I feel bad even saying it's mine, because it is a collective work of the most incredible people. It really, everyone that played on this album put a piece of their soul into it. And it is hard to claim it as just mine, because we all really just wanted to create something that was timeless and a masterpiece. And I think we did it.
something came into my head, a phrase came into my head as you were sharing this. And I was thinking about what you said about meeting with the people, and that they, were obviously looking for some specific thing. And it occurred to me, they're looking for someone that they can basically squeeze the life out of them to create dollars,
Mm-hmm.
for their music company. And I thought, she's nobody's fruit. Nobody's going to squeeze the juice out of her except
Yeah.
you to do it your own way in your own time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the conversations that I was having was like, what? It's always about you need to lose weight. You need to look different. You need to be 5'1" and blonde. Well, that's just not who I am. I will never be petite. I will never be blonde. I will never be tiny. That's just not me. And so again, a lot of it was just about like not about the music. It was about a lot of other things that I just really didn't care about. And also a lot of conversations were like, you need to have 3 million followers and every video of yours needs to have 1 million views and then come back to us. And I just was like, what do I need you for at that point? If I'm succeeding that much on my own, then I don't need your help. And if I'm doing well enough that you're interested in talking to me at that point, it means I'm doing the right thing and I don't need you to help me. And so that just, yeah, I mean, when the glass ceiling was shattered in those conversations where I just realized like, it's not, we're just in a different place now than even 50 years ago or even 30 years ago, honestly. And in a better way, truthfully. I think we're moving towards um, more sovereignty for independent artists. And I think that's a good thing. And so I think I kind of came here at the time that that bubble was just barely starting to get popped.
Mhm.
And obviously other artists like me have felt and realized that like we really don't need anybody else. And now with the concept of distributors where you can get your own music put up, because like when I moved here, you couldn't just go to Spotify and say, hi, I have a song, put that up here. That didn't exist. You had to be with a label and
Mhm.
they could put your music up. But that kind of shifted when streaming. I mean, I think Spotify had barely been out a year, maybe before I moved here, maybe 2 years. So just over the course of the time that I was here, and I'm so grateful that I took that break because I think I would have like it just wasn't the time for me. I was just too early, I just didn't really I was just before my time and that was just not conducive to when I first came here. So I'm so happy that I just put it aside and I let the world kind of figure out what they were going to do with people like me that are too strong to and we buck the system. I'm not going to play by your rules, but I want to play in the game. And it's just never been a better time, honestly, to be an independent artist. Like you have so much a control over your career. I can sell my music online. I can sell my merch online. You don't even have to stream anymore. It's just the platforms and the foundations to get your music. TikTok didn't exist when I moved here. I would have never met you. Like it's just the technology is finally caught up with where people are. And so it just wasn't right. And I'm just glad that I listened to myself and I backed down and I didn't just go through with a very expensive project because I wouldn't have written the songs that I've written. I wouldn't have written the contemporary songs that I have or the other styles of music. I would have never even dreamed to let myself go down that road. And my husband really was the iron behind. I mean, he really helped me like shape myself into something that I could do something with, and more than I would have ever allowed myself to do.
So you've made these two amazing albums. Now what?
Yeah.
What comes
Right.
next?
Right. So yeah. So when I was talking about earlier, sync licensing is such a big opportunity for people. And what that means is it's getting your music placed in TV shows or music or games or stuff like that. And that's really where a lot of artists actually make their money is in sync licensing. So my husband and I, we are very ADHD. We get pigeonholed into something. We learn everything that there is to learn about that thing, and then we move on to the next thing. And not knowing when we made the album, and we really didn't know how big it was going to be, and we really didn't know what it was even going to end up coming out together. But now we both have realized that we made a soundtrack for the rest of our life, for the other opportunities that we're going to step into, that there will always be ways to use this as a portion of there. But then, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with making art for just the concept of making art. And I very strongly believe in that you don't have to make money off of something that you love to do to make it worth your time. You can just make art for the sake of making art. And that was the original concept of this was we just wanted to do it to do it. And I think we've set ourselves up for a really great future where there's lots of opportunities where we can get our music plugged into different things. And I'm really excited to see the opportunities that we have where we're going next to be able to play music now because I didn't have anything original to play. I mean, like I could get away with playing in Nashville because I could play covers, but going to play a show outside was really difficult when you only have one song that you get that's yours. And only outside of Nashville do people ask you to play original music. When you're in Nashville, nobody wants to hear your original music. So I'm just excited to now. I feel like I put some feet into the ground and I have some foundations in place that hopefully what I would really love to see come from my career is to be able to help other artists get over this hump and this hurdle and use what I've learned to help them be more successful in their career and to give the information that I've gathered since I've been here to help somebody just not be taken advantage of or not sign away a lot of their rights or just to learn from my story in a way that helps them be more in control of their career. Yeah, would be like ideal. But you know, like so, like I'm sure we'll end up having a YouTube channel of doing something at some point. So now I've made the whole soundtrack for myself to use my own music for that. I had a friend a couple weeks ago ask me if they could play my song at their wedding. So, you know, I mean, it's just, I have learned to just have no expectations and then you can never be disappointed. So whatever comes my way, I'll just be happy with that. Other than that, I'm just happy to have things out after so many years now of writing music and just having somewhere I can send to people. And when I think of something that a song that I've written that might help somebody, I can actually send that to them. That's not a crappy little phone recording where I'm like, no, just imagine it'll sound better than that.
So, looking back on all of that, is there anything that you would have changed um, about that journey?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I think everybody always has regrets. See, hindsight's 2020. You always see things differently in the front. Like I said earlier, I think my biggest regret is I wish that I would have spend more time trying to be in a community of artists, especially women. I don't think I was in a place in my personal life that I really could do that. But now I see where having that female support and having a small band of women to lean on would have made my experience here a lot more bearable. And I would have been able to really have more of a sense of self than I did, where I was just kind of wandering out. But honestly, like, I honestly can't say though that I would, because if I changed one thing, who knows what else that would have changed, and maybe it wouldn't have ever ended up this way. So, you know, I mean, I think sometimes get you have to know how far your pendulum's going to swing before you know how far is too far. And sometimes you really have to find bottom before you're like, I don't want to go back down that far. And that's only a lived experience that you can learn from learning that. I really have no regrets. I just choose not to live that way. I think that what you learn is if you learn something, it's not a failure. And while I didn't succeed in the ways that I thought I was going to, it all obviously came to be the way it was supposed to, because everything layered onto the next thing that layered onto the next thing that layered onto the next thing that built the path to get to where we were able to do what we did. So, you know, I mean, I guess probably just don't be as stubborn and listen to more people's advice. If I had to go back and tell myself something, that would probably be it. But, you know, we all walk our own journeys, and yours is never going to be what anybody else's. And like I said, if you learn something from it, then nothing was a failure. If you just don't repeat the same mistakes that you did, then they were never mistakes in the first place. They were just learning curves.
Tell me about your best and worst experiences performing when you were doing the whole, go to the bars and perform and do that. Tell me about your
Mm-hmm.
best and your worst.
I think probably my best was when I played a show at a bar. I don't even think it's there anymore on downtown. It was called Bootleggers. And it was just a really small place. And I played with it was a designed show that was a roommate of mine had put together or had asked to be a part of it. And it was actually all women that played that night. And that was probably one of the best experiences of my life, was just being in a room with so many powerful and strong women that none of us were anybody at that point. I mean, there was nobody that would have been recognized. Since then, some of these girls have gone on to do things with their lives, which is really cool. But that was one of the moments that I knew that I was standing at the beginning of something really big, and I was going to be a part of something that was a big movement. And I didn't know at that time that that was kind of the beginning of the hump of women kind of surging back into country music and just kind of music in general, and kind of moving up into our place in society. And I remember feeling that night that, like, this is something really, somebody in this room is going to make it. And that was really, really cool.
That's awesome.
Um, my worst experience was there's a lot of those, but probably when I was playing a show in Myrtle Beach. It was my first show that I played outside of Nashville, and I had driven there with a friend of mine, and we had taken another guy to play, and we all ended up kind of sharing this three-way show and playing together. And it was my first time being in the front. I had just kind of been in the back of some bands at that point, and um, I just remember being up there. I had this uh, like apple cider hat on, and I thought I was so cool. I had it like down over my eyes, so like all people could see was like this part of my face. And I was playing on my chords and whatever. And this drunk guy got up, and I had an iPad I was going through between, and he just came up and just started going like this on it, and it was just like threw me all over the place. Where like I didn't know where I was, and I didn't know what to do. But I was also really grateful that I was there with a woman that she just totally took it. We were professionals. We all finished playing the song. And then when it was over and I went back to my place, she got up to the mic and she's like, I just want to remind everybody that just because you can touch us does not mean you are allowed to. And the next person that comes up here and crosses this threshold, you'll be removed from the bar. And she just went back and we just kept playing. And I was like, I didn't know you could do that. We'll do that now from here on out. And that's just another, big learning curve of like, oh, I didn't know you could push those boundaries. I just was going to deal with it and move on. And she was like, absolutely not. No, we do not deal with that. You do not let people treat you that way. You are in control here. This is your show. And if anybody makes you uncomfortable or pushes the threshold, you tell everyone else in the bar to get them out and be gone. So it was mortifying, but it was also a really good experience. And it taught me a lot.
Why am I not surprised that your worst experience happened at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina?
Surprisingly, that's actually one of my favorite places to play. When I was playing around, I would go play at the Bowery. I would go play at the Bourbon Blues. I love playing at Myrtle Beach. It's one of my favorite cities to go play in, truthfully. But I don't know. I guess it was just weird that I hadn't, from playing in downtown for so long, I'd never experienced that. And I just kind of thought if I was going to find anybody rowdy, I would
Mhm.
have dealt with it there. But I guess there's just kind of more of an etiquette people follow in Nashville. When every bar you go to, there's a live, and people obviously come there to hear musicians. I understand when you go to another city, people don't take you quite as seriously, but yeah, it was really interesting. I just remember her being like, I got your number, dude. We know who you are. Not again. And I was just like, I wouldn't mess with her. Don't. I'm not going to mess with her. You definitely don't want to mess with her. And she actually just went on to go get honored at the Opry. Her name's Alyssa JC. She just got honored and got her first show at the Opry that she just played. So yeah, you guys should go check her out. She's known as the Woman in Blue. She's really great.
That is fantastic. So is the Grand Ole Opry kind of the that's sort of the gold ring that people
Um,
come for?
yeah, yes and no. So like I'm not an Opry member, so like I'm not speaking from experience at all. But the Opry is kind of like the threshold that like if you're in the Opry, you've done enough that you're recognized on some basis in our industry. Like I said, quit doing a lot of music stuff a couple of years ago. So in no way was that ever going to be my trajectory, but they kind of end up honoring people that have been in the game for a long time. So yeah, I mean, if you end up at the Opry or win anything at the Opry, you can count yourself as like gold star. You are a Nashville musician for sure.
Um, so, you're leaving Tennessee. That's got to be kind of bittersweet. Um, what do you see as the music making part of things? Because I know you said you really want to help other artists and everything, but you're moving out of a space where you're surrounded by music and going somewhere else that's not music. So how will you keep music in your life, or is it important to you to keep, playing, singing, and writing?
Yeah. So yeah, I spent a lot of time thinking about this. It is it was hard to accept when I stopped playing music a couple of years ago was when I accepted that my whole life was not going to be about music. And because I kind of came to that threshold where it was like, I either need to commit that this is my life and this is what I'm doing for the next 30, 40 years, or I need to just accept that music is going to be a part of my life. It may not be the lead story. And so I think that when you're not searching for fame, which I'm not, there's a lot more opportunity for you than when you are like, I have to have people know my name. People have to know my face when I walk down the street. I particularly don't care for that from living the way that I lived when I first moved here, when I was like trying to be an artist. It was really difficult. It was really hard because every was just paranoid about everything. I didn't want my picture taken. You know, if I was at a party and there were like solo cups, I didn't want any, and someone just took a picture of the room, I would go over and ask them to delete the picture because I didn't want ever for someone to have something that could be blackmailed against me. And that was a lot of anxiety to live with. And there was a lot of fun opportunities I missed out on because I was afraid of how that would be portrayed later on in my life. And so, in letting go of that and letting go of that dream, I have accepted that I think that I will just be a good foundational support for other musicians, whether that's my children, if they are going to take all of what I've learned and my knowledge and hopefully be better than me and get better, you know, have better opportunities than what I had, or not self-destruct as often as I did. Or like I said, help other people who have a dream of coming to Nashville that don't necessarily think that they can do it. I think I can be more beneficial helping them in another city that isn't Nashville, giving them the confidence of and then basics of the foundations of what you need and the formula to be relatively successful coming here. I just also, like I said, I've just learned to accept that sometimes things are just what they are for what they are, and you don't necessarily need to have anything else that comes from it. I would continue making music whether I was going to make another album or not. You know, that's just something that my body and my mind and my spirit and my soul has to do. I mean, I just received some like really sad news a couple of days ago, and the only way that I was able to deal with it was I ended up writing a song about it. And I don't know if anybody will ever hear that song, but that was how I was able to process what happened. So, you know, I just really don't want to pick a lane, I guess. I'm just putting it all out there and letting the universe show me what the next stage is going to be for me. And I really do hope that it's based in either helping people come to Nashville or helping musicians who have already made music know how to make music money from that music, and it wasn't just wasted money going into the studio and paying for an album that no one's going to hear. That's where I feel like I'm being drawn to. It's not necessarily to step into the spotlight, but just to, now that I've been able to make this collective works, that I can either go get my music taken somewhere, or maybe I'll start playing around again when we get to where we go, because it'll be a smaller town, it'll be a little bit easier. But I don't really know, and I'm just leaving it open to show me what it's going to be. You know, this, and that's exactly how this project was we started not even knowing we were going to do an album. I just went in to go record a couple of songs, and after I did that, I was like, this is, and it just, and we didn't know we were going to do the A side and the B side. That just kind of all unfolded and came. So I think really what I've learned, and I know I've said this 100 times in this interview already, is just to not finite what your decisions are. You know, make informed decisions, have an idea. I always think you should have a goal that you're moving towards, but I think you should be okay with moving directions if something feels like it's not working, or if you're feeling inspired to go in a different way. I think we need to have more grace for ourselves to just let that be. And I've learned that really from my husband. He's like the poster child for just letting life take you where it should go and enjoying the journey while you're on the ride. And that, you know, with my album, when we were recording it, obviously we were thinking like, what are we going to do next from this? What are all these things? But I also really made sure to just live in the moment and just enjoy that experience as it happened, because not a lot of people have the chance to record an album, let alone 2 albums back to back. And I just really wanted to live in that time and not breeze through it and then wish that I would have gone back. And if anything, if nobody bought one of my albums ever again, I would still say that was the most amazing experience of my life. Not even just putting it together, but the people that we worked with and the whole thing. It just set such a foundation that can be applied to so many other things outside of music in my life. And I will forever be so grateful for everybody that came and participated in that, because it really was a collective work of incredible people.
Okay, this is really random. When you guys are like sitting at the dinner table, do you go like, "Oh, hey babe, I got this rhythm in my head." And I mean, do you guys like, are y'all organically musical with each other the way you interact?
So, no. But now kind of yes. The song that I just wrote a couple days ago, was the first time that my husband and I like jammed. Like he doesn't play an instrument. He sings on the album, and he is more like a DJ. That's only because he's just never tried. And I've told him forever, you are a musician. You've just never tried to play an instrument before. Like you have the ear, you can feel it. And he made a lot of suggestions when we were making the album that were incredibly like they were the pièce de résistance of what those songs needed. We have one song called "Echoes of You" that's on our B-side album. It's the fifth track, and we loved the song. Where I loved the song, actually, everybody wanted to cut it off of the album when we got started, and I fought to keep it. And I was like, I don't know what it's gonna finally sound like, but like this song needs to be on this album. And so we got through the base layer of recording the piano and my vocals and some backgrounds, and it just wasn't it. Like we all just listened to it. And my husband was the one that suggested that we put a fiddle on it, that he was like, I know you're Irish and I really want this to like, I want to hear more of your Irish heritage in this. And that never occurred to me to have that. It was the missing piece. That makes that song. I cannot hear it now and not think, what would that sound like if we didn't have the fiddle? So he learned a lot in that process, and he definitely, I can tell that he gained so much musical knowledge that he didn't have before. And so when I was writing the song the other night, I was kind of in there, and most of my songs, if I don't have most of it written in like 15 minutes, then I just start over, because most of my songs I've written in like 10 to maybe 20 minutes. And if it takes longer than that, then it's just not really great. And so I was just kind of finishing rounding out some things, and he just came running upstairs and he was like, the moon, you need to add the moon. I hear it, it's the moon. And then, and this high part, you need to put this high part in. And so I was like, I don't know what you're saying. And he has never done this before, but he sat down. This is probably the first song I've written since we had the album, if I'm being honest. Like we just, writing music has not come to me, and I haven't had anything to write about because I wrote about it all. And he sat down next to me and he picked out what he heard in his brain, and I played my bass part and he played his upper part with it. And we just like locked into a channel, and and I just let him kind of feel some things out and get into it. And that was the first time I would say we wrote a song together and that we jammed together. And so I'm really hoping that that continues, obviously, for the rest of our life together. But that was the first time. Most of the time, I would say I did a lot of my writing when I was alone. It takes me, I don't believe in just like writing. And that's why I didn't do really well with being in Nashville, because people are like, let's write on this day. We're going to set up 4 hours to write together. Come in, usually end up spending like 2 hours just talking and kind of trying to find something. And then you might get into a groove, but then your time is up, and then you'll leave with a half written song. And I just didn't really care for that. And I didn't really like writing with other people because I just felt too anxious and I couldn't really come up with anything that was substantial. So when I learned to start writing alone, and just when I feel inspired, that also changed the game. So usually, I mean, and it might come at like 3 o'clock in the morning. I've gotten up in the morning and written a song until like 6 a.m. I've also been starting a song at 1 o'clock in the morning and been up until 4 a.m. because that's just when I felt that inspiration, or I've always kind of been that way, that I just choose to write when I feel inspired. And now I am seeing that translate onto him, that like he gets it, he hears that. And so, yeah, so I'm hoping that he learns an instrument in the next year or two, because I think it would be really, really fun. I mean, I want to have like a little mariachi band with my kids, and just like everybody can like play something, but it would be really cool to have him be a part of that. And it's been really, really cool to see him just dive in and be a part of something that I love so much. That's such a big part of me, and getting to share it with the person that I love more than anything on the face of this planet, and having those two things come together, it like made my heart explode, honestly.
So how do you find opportunities? I know, like, if you go to church, right, you have the opportunity to sing, or like poets, we go find an open mic, right? So is that
Mm-hmm.
is that something that, you've done the album, but when you get settled, would you say, well, there's a little restaurant down the street and they have an open mic. Like, would you go sing and
Yeah, oh, sure. I mean, I definitely will still, go out and perform and do things here and there. Like I definitely don't follow the mold. I'm way more daring than most people are. I'm learning because I'm just not afraid to just go ask people. And that's how I got started playing on Broadway was I didn't know how to play on Broadway. Nobody would tell me how. And so on my days off, I would just go sit downtown with however much money I made that day in cash. And I would just go up to the band and ask them and say, if I give you $10, will you let me sit in on your next song with you? Because I learned that that was a phrase people said, can I sit in on your next thing? And it took me like maybe 3 months and a lot of money. And I finally had somebody let me sing and step up with them and sing. And the sound guy of that bar, when I got done, was like, are you on the circuit? Are you playing anywhere? And I was like, what is that? No, I don't know. And then that was just how I got into the right crowd with the right people, was doing it that way. And I mean, I'll go sing anywhere. I used to just walk up and down everywhere in Nashville, coffee shop, boutique, you name it, and just walk in and be like, hey, can I play for a couple of hours? And a lot of times they would say no, and sometimes they would say yes. So I would just stop and play. So, I mean, I'm not quite in the same place that I was in my like desperation of needing, but I'm sure wherever we move to next, I'll probably end up putting a little band together and just going out and playing some places randomly. Because also the expectation is just different. Like if you come from Nashville and you go somewhere else, just saying you're from Nashville, people automatically give you a lot more respect than when you're just like, hi, I'm a 22-year-old with no experience. Can I come play on stage at like the other 25,000 people that are asking you to play on stage as well? And being a musician for so long and touring for as long as I did, it just kind of takes the magic out of a lot of it now. Because now all I hear is things like, their bass is too loud, or somebody needs to turn this down, or this isn't high enough, or like this isn't perfect. And I will say that is the curse of Nashville. Like Nashville makes this, your standard is so high that it's hard now to go places outside of that. But I think it would be fun to get some people together and maybe just go play a show here and there, or go play at an open mic night. But we do so much karaoke in our house that it's nothing is more fun than singing karaoke in my house with my husband, and I
I
don't
want to
care.
come to karaoke night. I want to
Yeah.
come.
You'll definitely need to. And and I think that just all comes with like, how content are you with your life, right? I'm at a place that I am incredibly content with my life. I'm very happy with myself, my husband, my relationships. I'm very happy. And I don't need to go be with or around anybody. And if I want to go out and play music or go do something like that, it'll just be because I want to. And the right opportunity came up. And where we're moving to, he has some friends that have actually, one of his friends played on the album. He played harmonica on one of our songs. So I'm sure that he'll probably ask me to come out and come play with him. And like I said, I would just like to go do that, to meet people that are hopefully thinking about coming to Nashville. That would be the most ideal situation, is if I ended up playing, that I would get to play with other musicians who are pretty good and have thought about coming to Nashville, and then I can just give them the information that I have to help them be more successful, and the confidence that they should come try it, because everybody can make it here. If you're willing to work hard and you're willing to listen, you can make it. And if you're really serious about being a musician, you cannot, there's only so far you can go until you come to Nashville. Like that is a threshold you have to reach if you really want to make a career out of it in some way. Yeah.
I've been amazed. I've kind of been going down the rabbit hole on Spotify, and I am just amazed at the amount of music out there of, people I've never heard of. The level of competency is incredible. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
assuming that most of these people have never been to a California, Nashville, and New York or anything like that. Um, what does this do for the future of the music industry? Is it on the verge of being transformed into something else?
Yeah, I think it really is. I think we're just like when I moved here and it was the surgence of like streaming, and how that's taken like 10 years to plan that out and to be able to understand like where the thresholds are and what are the rules that we need and the laws. And I mean, I think we all know that legislation is always behind concept, right? So like that's going to come first. Everything is the Wild West until we figure out how to hone it in. And so right now I think what we're seeing is a intersection between independent artists and AI, and that is really how this goes, is going to decide how our music goes. So like with AI coming out now, and I talk with a lot of my musician friends, a lot of them are really worried about it dominating real musicians and things like that. I don't personally feel that afraid of it, because I think because I'm a lived experience, that if you're inauthentic, that can only take you so far. Your authenticity, that has to be there. People only, and they crave authenticity, especially now after we just, I think, had like 15 years of dubstep and like one liners. People really want stories. They want to connect to something. And so I have a much more optimistic view of the music world and the independent artist world than I think a lot of other artists do. But that's also because I've talked with like hundreds of people in just regular life and gotten their opinions about it. And I think that we will never live in a time that's better for independent people, and that continues to move forward. And I think that's something we should push as a society. We should support independent media. We should support independent artists, people that don't need to jump through all of these hoops in order to just be seen. And I think it's going to take learning to work with technology instead of working against it. I think that's the sweet spot of where we're all going to come into, with like the AI and AI artists. There's going to be a wave of people that, and there's already happening, people that are fake artists that are making AI music. You know, it's not to say their music isn't good. Music is music, but that person can't exactly go on tour, right? If you're like a 45-year-old guy who made an AI of a 22-year-old girl, you're not going to be able to go play as a 22-year-old girl because you aren't one. You're not going to be able to go do interviews because you aren't that person. And so that, I think that there will be a place for AI music. I think that's obviously, and it's obvious that that is going to have its own channel. But I really think that because we have such a craving for community and authenticity and tribalism as people, I think it's going to be probably 4 or 5 years, and we're going to see this whole thing level out to where it's going to make it more accessible for independent artists to be successful. And I think that's probably the best outcome that we could ask for. And I really do think that that's where we're heading. Because if you are a musician, or you are a songwriter, or you are a poet, AI is a great tool for you. I've written lots of songs with AI as a co-writer. Like, I would go sit downtown and write with a co-writer. The only difference is that I'm not worried about this person leaping across and attacking me, or I'm not worried about sharing, make sure that you write every single thing exactly perfect. Because if my name's not on this line, you could just take this whole thing and I don't get credit. Like, you just don't have the maliciousness that comes with other people and the bullshit you have to deal through with that. And so I think we're just kind of teetering on how, trying to figure out how to move from being in this very corporate world, as everything in media and like movies and TV shows up until now has been very corporate and structured, right? You have to be in Hollywood, you have to be with Universal, you have to be with these things in order to even see the light. And that just doesn't exist anymore. You can be nobody. I mean, look at Chapel Roan. I mean, she was signed with a label. Sure, she was, but she dropped her label and she was a totally independent artist. And 2 years ago, nobody knew who she was. And she dropped a new version of Pink Pony Club. And the next year, she was winning Album of the Year at the Grammys. That's never been a thing in
I
history
just
before, but
discovered,
it
you
is
said a
now.
word a minute ago. You said a word a minute ago. You said tribalism. And I love that because something I discovered today on Spotify is an indigenous band from Siberia.
Hmm.
They are female dominated. I think there's like five females in the band, and then there's a man who does the I forget what the vocal chord singing kind of thing. But they are amazing. I was watching, I was totally nerding out on them earlier
You're
today.
gonna have to send me their names so I can go listen
I
to them.
will. It's I can't I had it in my head earlier. I forgot it. But when you said what you said a minute ago, I was thinking about how this movement towards independent artists, I think, creates a fertile ground for people to speak about social justice and women's rights and humanist topics, and really put those things in the forefront, which corporate music is not going to go for that. Corporate music
Mm-hmm.
doesn't want to hear about that. I mean, when Alanis Morissette came out with her stuff, I know she was with a big label, but I mean, that was like bizarre. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the things
Mm-hmm.
that she spoke about were just like, what? Who are you? Now,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
love this. I think it's just creating that whole construct.
Yeah, no, you're so right. And somebody
Stacy
said, oh,
Township.
Tekin. Oh, thank you. Yeah, yeah, we'll write that down. And like, love her or hate her, Taylor Swift is a prime example of why we're moving in the right direction. The fact that the whole mess about her not being able to have her masters, most people didn't even know anything about how this works, about how there's a difference between a master recording and a songwriters and all these things. And like she really has opened up a lot of and shed light on like how this works and how incredibly predatory this industry is, especially on young people. And that's like who they go for is young people. And they just make you promises that they have no intentions of following through because it's great when someone's like, oh yeah, I can make you, you know, this and whatever. And so like her situation of buying her master's back and people just becoming more aware of it is going to be, when we look back in history, one of, if not the most important things that happened for independent artists
Hmm.
is her being able to buy back her masters and making it, doing her how she did with doing the Taylor's version. What she essentially did was she devalued her catalog so much that nobody wanted to buy it, all at the same time that she was making her own catalog that she was making money off of. And like that is a master. She just delivered a master class on how to be petty, honestly. And I'm so here for it. But like it really just kind of pulled back the cover that so much of the and like people like me who've been in this industry for a while, like that was all really familiar to me and I knew everything that was going on. But I was surprised to see how many just everyday people really didn't understand with all of the opportunities that we have at our fingertips now. People just still really didn't understand that this is such an archaic industry and how it's operated, and that made our industry update itself essentially. Like it really, they were trying really hard to not have to move the goalpost at all, and she pretty much was like, no, you are going to. And so just her doing that made so many people that are not in Nashville talking to these people, understanding all of these things, aware of their rights as musicians and aware of the opportunities that they could have and the things they should look forward to, right? So I know now, I had a friend of mine who just signed with a label, and they made sure to include in their contract that when their contract expires that they have control of their masters. Nobody would have ever thought to put that in their contract before. So I think that that's a really good sign that we are moving in the right direction. And I just think the more that we talk about it and the more that we as the consumers, because that's who we're making music for, is consumers, the more that we demand that artists be treated fairly, and that, you know, there's lots of people now that are talking about not even using Spotify anymore because of how much they've been like really shady stuff they've been doing with AI music and how they're like pumping numbers for AI artists over other artists, because like all of this money goes into one pool together. That's what happens, is that anywhere that you stream music, they have to pay to essentially use the music that they're streaming. So everybody pays into this big pool of money. And then when you have the right trajectory set up for you, like with your distributors or with your PROs, you're saying, I am putting my stake to the claim of this money that you're collecting anyway. It's mine. You need to give it to me. And if people don't know that they deserve that money, then those companies just get to keep it, right? So like there's like 4 different companies you have to register with in order to get all of the royalties that you're entitled to for your music. So most people just don't even know that. Like getting paid from playing music on Pandora is a different royalty than playing music on Spotify. They're called mechanical versus non-mechanical. So like while your distributor may be collecting your music on Spotify, you have to go to another place that's specifically designed to collect non-mechanical royalties in order to get your royalties that they're actually already collecting. But you just have to say, that's my money, give it to me, and they will. So like all of this has been so hush hush forever, and that's why it's an overwhelming monopoly of corruption in this industry, truthfully. And all of this coming to the surface, and like you said, like this tribalism, people feel when someone else has been wronged, they feel that on a personal level, and especially if it applies to you in any way. And so I've been really happy to see this play out the way that it is, and people really challenging, like there's lots of lawsuits out right now against AI and AI artists and like what they're able to do. And, you know, we just don't know the boundaries until we hit them. And then we as society decide that's too far. We need to bring it back a little bit. But I really, really am optimistic that what we're going through is a transition to making it more accessible for independent artists and just independently talented people to be able to not even just make the money that they deserve to make, but to just have the control over their career that they deserve to have.
Well, I think that our next interview needs to be after your TED Talk.
If you know anybody, sign me up.
Actually, I do know someone who's a TED Talk artist. One of our Tesoro sisters, at least one, has done a TED Talk. Stacy, is there anyone besides Shane who's done a TED Talk?
I'm happy. Like I said, my passion is helping people and helping artists, and I've learned so much about this industry. And nothing would make me happier than to share it with somebody else. If one thing that I said helps them have more control over their career and not be taken advantage of, then my whole experience here was worth it.
Yeah, yeah. Throat singing. That's what it's called. Throat singing, right?
Throat singing,
Yeah, the Odukayan is the name of that group.
the band,
Yeah,
that
it's
band.
like it almost
Yeah,
sounds
somebody
like
put that in the
gargling.
comments. I'm gonna write that down right now.
It almost sounds like gargling. Like, oh, I can't do it. It's pretty amazing.
I'm gonna go look them up as soon as we get off of here.
Yeah. She says we've
Oh, we
got
have handfuls of TED Talkers. If anybody wants to talk about music business, I have lots to say about it.
well, I think our hour is up. So, but I'm so excited that we got to do this, and I'm really excited to see what you decide to do in your next step. I mean, it kind of feels like, this was the top of the roller coaster, right? And we talked about flow and being in the flow, and you've been in this period of beautiful flow, and like you're getting ready to move and start that whole new chapter. So there's just a lot of really cool things on the horizon for you.
Yeah, well, I'm just really this avenue has brought me the most surprising thing that's happened since I put my album out is all these really beautiful relationships I've built with people, which was not something that I expected to have happen at all, but it's really like brought me into a completely different trajectory of being able to actually have meaningful relationships with people that are from, way far away and like meeting you and lots of other people that I've met in this time. It's just been so fulfilling. And I've just been so grateful that you even care about what I have to say, let alone listen to my music. And I'm just so thankful that you gave me an opportunity to come here and share what I have. And your show is so incredible. And I respect you so much. And so I really appreciate the opportunity you gave me today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And I'm so appreciative that Stacy helped me bring Heart of the Artist back. I went on hiatus with it 2 years ago, and I approached her and said, "Hey, I want to bring this back." And so she was like, "I believe in this. I believe in the concept of it, and it's definitely in line with Tesoro goals and values to, promote strong women doing good things in the world." So yeah.
I love that. We're all about that here. We love strong women. And I can't see anybody else that's on here, but thank you for everybody who's been here in this time and hanging out with us. And I appreciate all of your time as well.
Thank you so much, love. I am so proud of you for doing what you've done. And everybody listen to Iron Orchid. Tell everybody where they're going to be able to find you.
You should be able to find us on anything. Everywhere that you stream music, our music's on over 400 platforms.
Okay.
So if you can't find it, let me know and I will make sure to put it. But if anywhere, Deezer, Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, Touch Tones, literally, we should be on everything. So it's Iron Orchid is the band, Pages is our album. We have the A-side album and Pages the B-side album. So whichever one tickles your fancy, we've got you.
I love it. All right, everybody, check her out. And big hugs to you. Big love.
We'll do this again sometime soon. I am absolutely sure of it. And
Oh,
hopefully next
I'm
time we'll be in
coming.
the
I'm
same
coming
room.
for karaoke. You got to teach me how to play a couple of instruments.
Yeah, yeah, that's an open invitation. That will happen. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on The Heart of the Artist. Until next time, I am Whisper Poet, and the master behind the scenes with us is poet Stacy Dyson, founder of Tesora. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.